Well, hello everyone. This is Paris Procopis. Welcome to a live edition of the Paris Procopis Show. And guess what? I'm not on the go, which is kind of rare. I haven't been live for a while. Actually, the last interview I did, I interviewed Tyler, one of the kids who was involved with the parade massacre of sorts back in Waukesha a year or so ago. But anyway, tonight I just wanted to go live. I'm actually testing out some new equipment, so I want to see how I come across video-wise and also how I'm sounding. So please chime in and let me know what you think of that. Pardon me. It's a live show. I can't help it. So this won't be a long one tonight, but I do want to talk about a couple of quick things. This weekend was the big event in Waukesha County, and the Waukesha County caucus happened finally. There was some, how would you say it? There were some technicalities, and the caucus was not allowed to be held. Well, there was some debate as to whether it should be held, couldn't be held. Some people are saying yes, there was no problem holding it. Other people are not. And in hindsight, now looking at it, after watching the goings-on at the Waukesha County Republican headquarters, it was probably a good thing that Terry Dietrich made the call to not have the caucus, because there was one individual there who was just grasping at straws, little things, and it was crazy. And I'm telling you, it was a very heated discussion. You could clearly tell that some people are mad. You had the former chairman of the Waukesha Republicans before Terry Dietrich took over, and apparently he's a lawyer by trade, so he of course knows every little technicality, loophole, and they were all grasping at straws in it. At any rate, a while back I made an issue about the fact that I'm not a stranger to challenging Republican Party leadership. They have been letting us down a lot and that kind of thing. But there are some rare instances where Republican Party leadership in some areas is doing very well. And I made the case that Waukesha County is going very well. Terry Dietrich has done an extremely good job. And I wrote an article today, and I put it out on the on the interwebs, so to speak, and it is. And I talked about it with the changing political landscape throughout Wisconsin. Waukesha County has remained the largest concentration of conservative votes in the entire state. They're number one. Number two would be Milwaukee. Number three would actually be Dane County, believe it or not. But it's mainly because of the saturation of population. And, Dane County and Milwaukee County have been failing over the past many years. Milwaukee County, Scott Walker used to get about 38% of the vote in a county that he actually won for a county executive race twice. So there was that, and whatever. And over time, they fell to about 31%. Donald Trump got like 35% in 2016, and he won. Scott Walker got 31%, and he lost in 2018. And the rest is history. The Republican Party and conservatives have lost 19 of like the past 23 races, something like that. I don't know. It's like 19 losses, though. It's a lot of losses. We got lucky with and I'm talking statewide races right now. And Waukesha County is one of those counties that's extremely important to have everybody show up that can there. We typically need to get 65, 68%, that type of thing. And Ron Johnson did very well in the county in November. Unfortunately, Tim Michels did not. Part of it was because of people from the other primary camp that had butt hurt and refused to vote for Tim Michels. So they supported Tony Evers. Go figure. So much for conservatives. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, we have a very successful county in Waukesha County. Milwaukee County, as I mentioned, with 31%. Dane County was like 20, I think Johnson got 23%. Once again, Tony Evers or Tim Michaels got 20%, like 21%, something like that. Once again, some people falling off because of the whole that. Yeah. So, hey, Kriston, thanks for joining in. Yeah. Good candidate, bad candidate. You can also say that, Ron Johnson was a bad candidate. You can say that Leiber was a bad candidate. It's not. It was an environment that Rebecca Kleefisch would have gotten her clock cleaned as well. I mean, it just all the anti-establishment types wouldn't have supported her. I'm under the guys. I would have supported whoever won the primary, and I'm living proof of that is I'm consistent with this. I did it back. I actually supported Mark Newman back in 2010. And then hey, my brother's on there too. And I actually supported, and then Scott Walker was the man going forward, and I supported Scott Walker, and the rest is history. I actually worked my butt off to save him from the recall, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a lot of that. And most recently, I supported Jennifer Doro for Supreme Court, and Dan Kelly won the primary. So guess what? I'm supporting Dan Kelly. That's what grown-ups do. But anyway, a lot of the fact, those people that voted for Ron Johnson but refused to vote for Tim Michaels, why? Because Tony Evers was better? Really? Because they're mad that it wasn't their candidate or whatever. But nonetheless, we'll never know, because their candidate couldn't even win their primary, and that's and the rest is history. But anyway, here we are. And where was I? Oh, I got distracted by people chiming in, and it's great. Please chime in. But we had the primary recently for Supreme Court, and once again, Milwaukee delivered a whopping 31%, and Dane County actually had fallen down to 17% in the primary. Yeah, I can make that. It's a primary. Not many people show up. The fact of the matter, we were at 17%. That's unacceptable. And the leadership team there got thrown out on the street. They have a new leadership team there. They have a new leadership team in Milwaukee County as well. So great. I hope we get a fresh start. We get some people. Even if we increase by 1, 2, 3% in those counties, that's significant because it yields thousands of votes. Every percentage is several thousand votes in those counties because of the population saturation. And then Waukesha County, of course, did about 64.5%, so just under 65%. And as usual, they delivered. And that's been largely because of the leadership of Terry Dietrich and his leadership team. It's phenomenal how well they've done in the middle of what westward expansion of liberals and liberal thought into cities like Brookfield and Menominee Falls and New Berlin and other areas in Waukesha County, where people are leaving Milwaukee because they can't handle it, but they're bringing their ideology with them. And that's a problem, because it got so bad in Milwaukee because of their ideology. But they're not getting that. Hopefully they'll change. Hopefully they'll learn, whatever. But Terry Dietrich's managed to keep Waukesha County at 65%. Plus, there's a statistic here. 252 out of 272 municipal races. That's including aldermen and school board races, etc. I mean, that's huge. And the entire delegation to Madison in Waukesha County is now Republican. Every single one of them. So that's a big deal, and a lot of that comes down to leadership. Well, anyway, there was a challenge to Terry Dietrich. A small group got together, led by Robin Moore, decided she wanted to run against Terry Dietrich. And I have nothing against Robin Moore. I like her. I've known her a long time. She's a great lady. That type of thing. I've acknowledged they have every right to challenge leadership. I am of the guys that anybody may challenge leadership at any time for any reason that they choose to. I question the wisdom of challenging Terry Dietrich because he does have a successful track record. And I wrote an article talking about my thoughts on why the challenge happened. I think part of it was, quite honestly, his refusal to bend over and kiss the feet of the self-proclaimed chosen one in the governor's primary. He took a stance of neutrality in the governor's primary. And then after Tim Michels won the primary, guess what? He supported Tim Michels. Oh my God, the audacity. And plus, you know, he supports Trump and stuff like that. And in the end, it's the Republican Party is having kind of an identity crisis in some areas, and part of it is because, you know, you've got the Trumpers versus never Trumpers. Larry kicked in on it a little bit, and there is a battle. And right now, the party is still effectively controlled by the Trump wing. But some people don't like that. And I remember back in 2016 how the Republican Party of Wisconsin overtly and covertly went to do everything they could to derail Donald Trump because he wasn't the perfect conservative. Well, anyway, Donald Trump was able to win in spite of it. And I know for a fact that there were actually pallets of Trump-Pence yard signs that were undistributed in a warehouse somewhere in Waukesha at the time. And that was because the party did not want Trump officially. But unofficially, middle people were like, okay, they made grown-up decisions like we all did, and we made a choice. You either support Donald Trump or you support Hillary Clinton. And you can say, well, I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I didn't support her. Any vote that was not a vote for Trump was supporting Hillary Clinton, period. And the same thing happened in November last year. Any vote that was not supporting Tim Michels was a vote for Tony Evers. You supported Tony Evers. You openly allowed another 4 years of Tony Evers. Well, of course, these people had lack of foresight in their childish temper tantrum. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to, oh no, he's dividing the party. Oh my God. Yeah, Paris is going to cause you to not vote. Oh my goodness. It's terrible. Oh, my camera's moving. Oh, that's weird. Okay, let me do this. I've got one of those cameras that doesn't move. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I was getting distracted by technology. I'm trying a new camera that's on a gimbal. So, fun stuff. But we have a situation here where we got kind of two different schools of thought of conservatism. And I'm like, you know, in the end, conservatism is actually not in this little bubble. Conservatism encompasses a lot of little bubbles. You've got the Christian right. You've got the libertarians. You've got the moderates. There are even some liberal Republicans. You've got the constitutionalists. You've got and I mean, everything in between. There's so many different wings of conservatism. And what I guess the advantage that the Democrats right now have is they remind me, if anybody watches Star Trek, yes, I'm a nerd, I can't help it. They're the Borg. And the Borg were this race of basically a hive collective. The queen runs the collective, almost like bees, if you want to put it that way. And everybody else is a drone. That's what the Democrats have become. They purged any sort of free thought out of the party. There's no such thing as a pro-life Democrat anymore. Things like that. Where on the conservative side, there's all different kinds. But unfortunately, there are some conservatives, the establishment types, you know, the Scott Walker, Rebecca Kleefish wing, if you will, who are trying to purge any other thought but their own. And that's bad. David King, so what are you? David King, you're an anomaly. You're a little bit of everything. You're a free-thinking spirit, my friend. But Deborah's watching too. Hey, Deborah. But they're purging any other thought out of the party. They want us to all be drones. You're not a good conservative unless you're a perfect conservative. We saw that recently in Racine County where His Royal Highness, Robin Voss, and I'm calling him that because he's running around acting like he's monarchy. If you dare don't toe the line, you're out of the party. This is what it is. I mean, the Adam Steen wing of the party is entitled to have a say in the Republican Party. These are Republicans as well. What? Because they challenge His Royal Highness? And I was not a supporter of the write-in campaign. I thought it was ridiculous. After you lose, 1 second, folks. I'm back. Sorry about that. That was my commercial break. Sorry. It's sorry. It's a live show, and I realized my whole control center was running on battery, and the battery was running out. So I had to quickly get myself connected to battery, so I didn't all of a sudden just fall off the face of the earth. Let's see. I'm looking at comments here. Yes. The Democrats are the Borg. Yes, they are. Resistance is futile. And that's what the Republicans are starting to become. And that's wrong. That's bad. The fact of the matter, we have a coalition of folks. When you look back at 2012, when we went in and overwhelmed the system, even though they were cheating with all the white vans from Illinois coming around, getting people in to vote because there was no voter ID required at the time, we were able to deliver a huge victory for Scott Walker in the recall election because everybody was united in that common cause. And we've got to find that common cause. And that common cause is not Trump or DeSantis or anything like that. The common cause is whatever, as close to whatever brand of conservatism that you want to subscribe to, the closest you can get to that. Like the libertarians, they're fiscal conservatives. They want to legalize marijuana. They're socially more liberal or moderate, depending on what it is. So it is, but there's always points where we can all agree on something. And, like Abe Lincoln once said, a house divided amongst itself will not stand. Well, anyway, so we have this coalition, and the coalitions are kind of fell apart during the Rebecca Kleefisch, Tim Michels primary. There was a Kleefisch wing, there was a Michels wing, then you had the Tim Rantham wing as well, which wasn't as large, but it's I guess it's infighting, and infighting in and of itself is not a bad thing. Everybody needs to get their point across to do it, but in the end, it's okay as long as you unite. And what we saw back in August of last year, at the end of the primary, Rebecca Kleefisch conceded when she lost the primary. And it was devastating to her. She thought she was the chosen one and all that stuff. And good, bad, or indifferent, it is what it is at this point. But she was okay in her victory speech, but didn't say, we must all rally behind Tim Michels. And she didn't say a word of it. And what we saw in the Supreme Court primary was a much different take. And because of that, we're seeing a little bit different motivation by the base electorate of conservatives and Republicans. We're all unified that we don't want the liberals to take control of the Supreme Court. Period. So, but that all comes from the top. Rebecca Kleefisch went and hid away in her little bubble and did nothing to help Tim Michels. And more on that coming on April the 5th. I'll leave it at that. But she did nothing. Didn't even say support Tim Michaels. But what we saw, this is Jennifer Doro's concession speech. I'm going to read it to you guys. And it's my latest article about Dan Kelly in newsundone.com. It says, she said, "First off, I want to thank those who supported me in this campaign. I will be forever grateful and humbled by the faith you placed in me. With the primary now over, I want to reiterate what I said both last night and throughout the campaign. Those of us who believe in a fair and impartial judiciary must unite behind Dan Kelly. The very role of a judge is on the ballot on April 4th. Like Dan, I believe anyone who comes into a courtroom deserves a judge that is fair and impartial, who has not made up his or her mind before the case even begins. But Janet Protasiewicz has already told us that she will put her thumb on the scales of justice." I don't like that phrase, by the way, but at any rate, "She will put her thumb on the scales of justice. We cannot let her succeed. I ask all those who volunteered, contributed, and voted for me to now get behind Dan Kelly. I look forward to helping him win on April 4th. That is my friends, a graceful, classy concession speech. I wasn't happy about it because I would rather she had been the winner, but that's what it is. So last night I saw an exchange. It was really cool. Dan Kelly was there at not last night, Friday night. Dan Kelly was there at the Republican caucus. He came up and shook Jennifer Doro's hand, was very cordial. They had a very pleasant exchange. That's what it's about. And that was good to see. I'm happy to see that. And because of that, I think conservatives, I think the 200,000+ people, or just around 200,000 people that supported Jennifer Doro are 100% going to vote for Dan Kelly. There is no one who I know that has said, "No, I'm not going to vote because I'm mad because Jennifer lost." Blah, 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 blah. You know, I was a huge supporter of Jennifer. I'm totally supporting Dan Kelly. This is what we do. So it was nice to see that. Unfortunately, there was there was a lot of heated exchanges there, and you can check it out. I wrote an article that said, "Embracing Success, Waukesha County GOP decisively reelects Terry Dietrich as chair." And I talked about his successes and what have you. But there was one point, there was a big contingent of the young Republicans, and I would argue that they were all Becky supporters too. And that's fine, there's their prerogative, but just calling it what it is. And they were, I'd say they were overwhelmingly, if not all of them, supporting Dan Kelly in the primary. Terry Dietrich was talking, and he said he wanted to congratulate Jennifer Doro on running a positive campaign and for gracefully conceding and for immediately endorsing Dan Kelly. The room got into a rousing applause, and everybody stood up and gave her a standing ovation, except the whole group of young Republicans, except for one. One of them had the courage to stand up, and they were looking at that poor guy like he was Satan. "Oh my God, how dare you stand up and clap." You know, at this point, it's cordial. We're all supposed to be on one side. You stand up. But no, even when their candidate wins the primary, they act like spoiled children, and that's sad. It is very, very, very sad. They need to be touched. Yeah, right, Lorna. David, April 5th, there's an article coming out. I'll leave it at that. It'll stir the pot a little bit. I love it. Oh yeah, so egos are getting in the way in Texas too. Wow, all the way down in Texas. See, look at the reach I have. I have people watching me from Texas. I love it. And this is live casting, by the way, to Facebook, to YouTube, to Tinder. I keep doing that. To Twitter, and to where else? Oh, obviously I'm recording it and everything else like that. So this is live casting all the way to around the country. And there's Ian C. Jordan chiming in. It'll be interesting. So but it is it is actually, I'm cautiously optimistic. After last night was over, or after Friday night was over, the caucus was held on a Friday night because they didn't want to do anything to interfere with Super Saturday getting to vote out for Dan Kelly. And that's what we got to be united in common cause to get to Dan Kelly. The money is starting to flow in. They just had $1 million ad buy for radio and I think some TV. We're finally seeing some momentum, and I'm seeing this is very reminiscent of 2017 when Brian Hagedorn got elected. No, I don't want any Hagedorn comments. This isn't about that. But the fact of the matter, Brian Hagedorn ran as a conservative, and most of the time he still is conservative. I mean, he is. There are, like I said, different variances of conservative and different interpretations of the law. It doesn't mean that he's necessarily doing it. He's not uniting with the liberals. He's always, if he's ever dissented, he dissents with his own dissent for his own reasons, whatever they are. And that's, yes, King for Mayor. Once I figure out this new platform, I'll start putting the comments up. I haven't set that up yet. But, oh, now I completely lost all train of thought. It's like, squirrel! Who knows? So, let's see. Yeah, I haven't been on the air so long. I'm not getting a lot of, and I know I'm being throttled back by Facebook as well. So anyway, it's nice to see. So Terry Dietrich, Waukesha County will keep doing what it's going to do. Unfortunately, there were some things said by a couple people, even on the pro-Terry side, that shouldn't have been said. Someone said that that his opponent was being run by Robin Voss, and that nothing could be further from the truth, because I know Robin, and I know she's not a big fan of Robin Voss as far as I know. I don't want to speak for her, but so that was way out of line. There's someone like coughed under their breath when she went to speak. And I'm telling you guys, I mean, I didn't agree with the fact that she challenged Terry, but I support her right to do it. Like I said, anybody should be allowed to challenge Republican Party leadership anytime, anywhere, for any reason. You may win, you may not. I mean, we got the people challenging Scott Grabens in Madison, in Dane County, and they overwhelmingly won. And that's the same thing. Terry Dietrich's margin of victory was 190 to 41, I believe. And it was decisive. It wasn't close. Now, he has to acknowledge there's some people that have issues, and they need to have a come to Jesus conversation and discuss it so they can move beyond that, so we can focus on winning elections. That's all that matters. And that's all we have to say about that. Now, one thing I've been saying from the start, and this goes back to even before Dan Kelly had a challenger, I was concerned about Dan Kelly's political chops. He's a phenomenal Supreme Court justice. No question about his judicial pedigree at all or anything like that. And he's a great guy. I talked about a personal interaction. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I had some concerns about getting over the finish line because he's not wired to be a politician. He's just not. And that's actually an endearing quality. I'm getting tired of politicians, to be honest with you. And that's what we have here. So anyway, and I supported Jennifer Doro because she was this breath of fresh air, and I thought she could have done very well in the general election. And I know the liberals were afraid of her because they put in over $1 million just to get her off the ballot. That was unheard of. Oops, there, okay. See, when I do that gesture, my camera will turn on. If I move, I'll start moving. And I've got a green screen behind me, and there's a certain point where the green screen ends. In case you guys wanted to know. But anyway, so Dan Kelly put up a heck of a fight, and he won. And actually, that's not a bad thing. He had a victory under his belt now. You need a victory, and victories tend to lead to potentially other victories. You get a little more motivated, a little more pep in your step, and you got it. So I think that'll help him. I like primaries. I'd never have an issue with primaries. I don't even care if my own candidate is primaried. I think it's a good thing because it keeps everybody honest in the political frame. But anyway, and I can read from this a little bit, and I call it because there's all these commercials talking about how Dan Kelly is anti-woman. He doesn't care about women. And I called it a hyperbolic lie by the left. And it's not true at all. And I kind of said this, here we go again. Liberals are staying true to form and desperately trying to make the Supreme Court race about abortion. Of course, this is because they have nothing else to offer. And as we saw in November, this approach work for them across the country. They really, abortion was the big reason they were able to push back on the red wave. And I had, what was I going to say? Yes, it's no mystery that I was a vociferous supporter. And for those of you who are uneducated liberals, it's vociferous means loud. So anyway, I was a vociferous supporter of Judge Jennifer Doro in the primary. Still, I had said from the beginning that if Dan Kelly advanced to the general election, I had zero issue supporting him because of his solid record on the Supreme Court of Wisconsin. Dan Kelly won, and just like Jennifer Doro said on election night, I am fully supporting Dan Kelly's return to the Supreme Court. I had my concerns that while Dan Kelly is a solid justice, he struggles in the political battlefield. He's not a politician, and I mentioned this, it's actually a good, endearing quality, and unfortunately this is a political race, and then I even said hopefully his primary one will give Kelly momentum going into general. And unlike in past primaries, as far as I can see, I don't know of a single one of Doro's nearly 200,000 supporters that is voting for, or that is not voting for Dan Kelly. It's beyond me if anybody does. And then I said this is a large part because Jennifer Doro's concession speech that I listed that. Judge Jennifer Doro displayed total class in their statement, and her supporters have followed. Now I have read I know I have. Read every word of her statement because it's true. I firmly believe the conservatives are united, but that is not enough. And I've said this before. Liberals have billions of dollars and are fighting hard for that middle. We must also. And this was before we started hearing about those millions of dollars coming up. But my fear, and I've said this from the start, the perfect conservative record may play well in the conservative echo chambers, but will not win the middle. The credentials only go so far, and people need to see more of Dan Kelly's personal side. Unsurprisingly, the left immediately turned to their tried and true method of campaigning. Every pro-say-what's ad on TV and radio has been desperately trying to paint the false narrative that Dan Kelly is somehow anti-woman because of blah, 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 abortion rhetoric, blah, blah, blah. Nothing could be further from the truth. First of all, I'm going to take an aside here from Paris Procopis' article to talk as Paris Procopis. There is not a single point of record where Dan Kelly has publicly stated that he supports the 1848 law, that he does not support exceptions. I don't know if he does or doesn't, quite honestly. And I think that's a good thing. I'm glad I don't know because, I can guess, but that would be a lie if I said I knew for a certain, beyond a reasonable doubt, to quote a legal term. Nobody knows. The liberals are literally lying. Surprise, surprise. So, yeah, he's not anti-woman. He's just not. First of all, I talked about the fact that he has 4 daughters. And he has a daughter-in-law and a wife. There's no logical path where one could even think that he was anti-woman. Just simply based on that. And I have daughters myself, and this is what I want to talk about. And I'm reading from my article again. I would never support an anti-woman candidate. It's ridiculous. But, the left will try. Once again, they have no ideas no original ideas. They're the Borg. They have their marching orders from their queen, whoever that would be. I guess in this case it's Procopis. So, and I took everybody on a personal journey, not with Dan Kelly, the Supreme Court Justice, but Dan Kelly, the man. And sorry, I did say, sorry if I triggered some social justice warriors, because I said Dan Kelly, the man. I know, that's the whole thing. And I even said, back in 2019, one of my daughters was entering her senior year in high school and was planning on going to George Washington University in D.C. Incidentally, I know I'm not a biologist, but the doctor did tell us we had a daughter. The audacity. Anyway, apparently having inherited the political bug from yours truly, she wanted to know if I would be willing to connect her with some leaders I know. I reached out to Justice Dan Kelly at the time. He was the sitting justice, and asked to be willing to sit down with my daughter and have a conversation with her. Without hesitation, he was more than willing. Incidentally, I connected her with a female leader in the Republican Party, and she got about an 8-minute phone call with this female. I'll leave it at that. So I know people are busy and, who's my daughter? Who am I? That kind of thing. A few days later, my daughter and I met Dan at a Starbucks off I-94. Dan being the busy guy with the big family and a sitting Supreme Court justice at the time. He met with my daughter. He's a sitting justice. So that goes to show that Kelly doesn't think he's better than anybody. Oh, I'm a Supreme Court justice. I don't have time to meet with you serfs. Oh my God. He showed this. I mean, he showed humility. I figured a meeting was going to be like a half hour. I had no idea. But what I thought would be a short meeting ended up being over 3 hours. And I even mentioned the fact that I was a fly on the wall. Yes, I know it's hard to believe. Paris Procopis shutting up and listening. And I was watching her. And I was watching him. And anybody who you talked about Dan Kelly with, it's like, oh God, the guy likes to talk. Don't get him started on the Constitution. I did. I think he refers to himself as a self-proclaimed constitutional geek when it comes to the Constitution. He loves himself some Constitution. I'll give him that. But he sat there and he listened to her. They had an exchange of ideas, and he was interested in what she had to say. He treated her he was very respectful and showed that he valued her opinion. Once again, this is not the activity or the attitude of somebody who's anti-woman. So, and that's this. My daughter enjoyed the interaction so much that she actually voted for Dan Kelly in the 2020 spring election. My daughter tends to be a little more left-leaning on some things, but I'm not going to force feed her. I want her to learn on her own. And she's learning. And she ended up voting for Dan Kelly. First conservative she ever voted for. So I'll leave it at that. So, but anyway, I even said that he's a law nerd. So I wrote this, I talked about this exchange with my daughter that shows that he actually takes this "I work for you" mantra very seriously. And he treated her with that utmost respect. And it was a great exchange. He didn't owe my daughter 3 hours. He didn't even owe her 5 minutes, really. And he did it. He took time out of his schedule. He invested some time with her. And it was great. Great exchange. And I said I challenged the liberal elitists like Janet Protasiewicz to say they've done the same. In fact, the fact is they cannot. These elitist liberals like to think they're above us serfs and we must kiss their feet. And I did indicate, sadly, that goes for a lot of conservatives. Dan Kelly is a rare breed in that regard. Once again, the fact that I supported his opponent in the primary was not personal. It had nothing to do with that. So anyway, if you're on the fence, you're in the center, and you're watching my show right now, or even reading my article and that type of thing, Dan Kelly treats the Constitution of the United States and Wisconsin with the same respect and dignity he treats his daughters, and mine as well. I've got multiple daughters. I mean, it's just crazy. So like our daughters, our Constitution needs to be respected and protected. Dan Kelly has already proven that he would do this. Janet Protasevich has proven that she would not. She's never been in the high court, and that alone should give one pause. You know how she's going to rule on stuff, and she's never sat on the high court. What does that tell you? It's like all these kids in school. Well, there we go. The kids in school, if kids know their teacher's political ideology, then those teachers are absolutely failing. So, but that's a different conversation. You know, the fact of the matter is, Dan Kelly is our conservative. He is the conservative running in this race. And I know this goes without saying. If there's any conservative who's not going to vote for Dan Kelly because of this, that, or the other thing, don't be stupid. Nothing justifies allowing Janet Protasevich to be on the Supreme Court. I mean, that's just as stupid as these people who refuse to vote for Tim Michels. And then, you know, their excuse was, some of these people's excuse, well, it's okay if Tim Michels loses because we still have the legislature. They didn't bother thinking ahead. Look exactly what we're faced with today. We are faced with losing the Supreme Court in the state of Wisconsin. That's a problem. And frankly, this would be an issue even if Tim Michels had won. Every law that would have been passed by Tim Michels would have been overturned by the Supreme Court if Janet Protasevich is on there. So we no longer will have the legislature because the legislature will be effectively neutered. Well, neutered more than they already are. We all know that's Oh, I guess we're having a discussion about wings in there. Yes, I want some wings too. We got all beat up. You know, oddly enough, Moe's Irish Pub has some pretty phenomenal wings. I do recommend them. I never thought an Irish pub would have great chicken wings, but they do. Thank you, Ian Jordan, for introducing me to that. Well, and anyway, we got millions of the Eric Holder dollars coming in Wisconsin. Everything's pouring in, and we must do better. You know, and I posted this on Facebook the other day. It's like our side is bitching that all this third-party money is coming in for the Democrats. Why don't you stop bitching and start asking for our own third-party money to start coming into Wisconsin? There's plenty of it out there. It's not illegal. You know, and I'd like our Wisconsin Republican Party leaders to spend a little time building their own a little less time building their own personal brand and more time doing fundraising and stuff like that. I heard an interview where Brian Schimming was asked if he had talked with Diane Henricks, and I was just shocked at his answer. He said, "Oh, I haven't talked to her in months." That should have been the first phone call that was made. One of the wealthiest conservative leaders in this state, and you haven't talked to her. So that concerned me a little bit. But lo and behold, we're starting to see the money not just trickling in, but the money is coming in droves. It's huge. I think we've got a chance here. Like we saw in 2017, remember, everybody left Brian Hagedorn for dead. He was not going to win that election. WMC abandoned him. The Realtors Association abandoned him. The Republican Party abandoned him because, they were giving issues with his support of some Christian school. And they were saying that because this Christian school was bigoted because they didn't allow gay people in it or something. I don't know. It was something stupid. Well, they went on this anti-Christian rant, and that hurt them. Brian Hagedorn ended up on the cart, and the rest is history. So just remember this. One little thought. Anybody who complains, well, Dan Kelly didn't do enough fundraising while he was running for the past 2 years and whatever. Judicial candidates are legally barred from raising money. They cannot raise money. This is not Dan Kelly's fault. This is the Republican Party's fault for not being prepared. The last leadership raised like $50,000? What's with that? So I'm hoping, yeah, I know Brian Shimmy has the opportunity to look really good or really bad. This isn't Brian's court. I mean, he's the leader of the party right now. It's in his hands. And he looks to be doing the right thing. He's saying the right rhetoric. I think it's important that he is talking about ballot harvesting and getting people to vote early. The only thing I don't is he's not completing the sentence. People need to understand why we need to vote early. If you vote early, we can then mine that data and we can get a list of people who haven't voted yet. So if they see Paris Procopis voted, they're not going to waste their time trying to get Paris Procopis to vote. They're going to make sure that Ian C. Jordan has voted. So, and yes, Tracy Stefanski said the Republicans need to create the correct ads to run. I agree. Messaging is huge. Right now, the left controls the abortion narrative. If we make this about abortion, we will lose. I'm telling you right now, we will lose. The Democrats know that. Why do you think they're so desperate to make this election about abortion? So, I'm telling you, we've got to get off this. That's why I wrote this article. It's titled it's on newsundone.com. Check it out. Untangling the hyperbolic lie that Dan Kelly is somehow anti-woman. And I went into the personal story about my daughter because people need to see that side of Dan Kelly. Because unless you're a political junkie, hard right involved, conservative, having the rhetoric of how conservative Justice Kelly is and how much of a constitutional jurist Dan Kelly is does not mean diddly to the independents. Like it or not, sizzle sells in politics. You look at David King, for example. He's watching here. He is a pastor. He preaches the gospel and very religious man, very dedicated to his religion and stuff like that. But he's also kind of practicing what he preaches out there. He's connecting with people. He's got this, great outgoing personality and stuff like that. He connects with people, and people have to realize that. You need to connect with people. And messages need to connect with people. He's the one that's you sit in church on Sunday, but you vote against your values on Tuesday. That connects with people. That's the type of thing that people understand. Dan Kelly is a great constitutional conservative, and he believes that he's not going to put the thumb on the scale. What the hell does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. Yeah, I get it. I'm a Greek. I know Themis was the goddess of justice in Greek mythology. And Themis is, she's got the blindfold on and holding the scales of justice. Yeah, you put the thumb on the scale. I get that. Most lay people don't know that. They don't understand it. So what does it mean, put the thumb on the scales of justice? Do you want your case already decided before it even gets into court? That's the type of stuff you have to use to connect with people. it's I don't know why I'm saying I'm just getting kind of heated. I'm trying to keep it. Is my camera moving again? Yep, my camera's moving again. Let's just try to go down here. There. See, I talk with my hands, and for whatever reason, my camera is picking up my hand gestures, and whatever, it is there. Well, anyway, yep, got to get out there, get more people to vote, but we've got to connect with the middle. We've got to have the right messaging. And the perfect conservative, red beat conservative type of rhetoric is going to lose. You need stuff that people can relate to. Janet Prosevich. Oh, I care about women. I care about what? Okay, you're a woman as far as I know. I mean, I think she is. Once again, I am not a biologist, but I play one on TV. Excuse me. So anyway, so this is my show for the night. We're just under an hour. It's my first one back in a long time. I just basically said tonight, I said, there have been other times that I'd be sitting around talking with my son and say, I think I'm going to do a live tonight. And then I end up not doing it. I get distracted, whatever. He goes, you always say that. Well, guess what? I did a live tonight. So there. Paris Procopis show is back. I'm thinking of going Sundays and maybe Thursdays. I'm going to go a couple times a week. And then I'm going to connect. We're going to get more guests on the show once I figure out the new platform to get everybody on here so we can get a guest on and we can have a little bit of dialogue. I know Ian wants to have a debate on why Trump or why not Trump and that kind of thing. And we're going to have that discussion. David King, well, I'm sure he'll chime in at some point here and come on the show. And we'll have others as well. I do want to start having some more interesting guests. I don't want to talk about just local Wisconsin politics as well. While it is important, I want to talk about the bigger issues as well. It's important, and I mean that when like News Undone, the logo for News Undone, my tagline is a story behind the story from the right perspective. And this is there's going to be a lot more stuff coming around the bend here, including the fact that I'd like to do some more writing about more pop culture things as well, and everything that affects us, and everything from music, sports, that kind of thing. We'll probably talk about the whole Aaron Rodgers trade situation, or the fact that are we at a pivotal point in our society where we're going to stop supporting these overpaid athletes? $50 million a year to throw a ball? It's ridiculous. And if I want to take my 16-year-old to go to a Brewers game, and you're looking $100 for one game. You got to get tickets. You got to get parking. You got to get, and obviously you end up getting some food or whatever. I'm not a big drinker. I hate beer. Never liked beer, so I don't have to worry about that. But even sodas are like almost $10. It's just crazy. So if you have a small family and you want to take them to a ball game, you just can't because it's cost prohibitive. Unless you can get some good tickets on StubHub or something like that. And even then, you're getting really bad seats. So, yeah, I want to talk about stuff like that and talk about bigger issues. I want to talk about gun control and the bad rhetoric that they're using, where they're manipulating the statistics to try to support the pro-gun control narrative when it's really not what they're saying. It's stuff like that I like to focus on, but we'll get through it all. We just have to give it some time to get going, and it'll all come. Yeah, there's going to be more shows coming, and then I will be doing a show on the school board races too. We can, yeah, that's right, David King's book. We need to talk about David King's book. And David King has a business as well about, empowering individuals to become self-sufficient and everything like that with business and everything. So I think it's important that we talk about that. Not just, I'm tired of politicians and these politicians who have effectively become oligarchs. The Robin Vosses of the world, the Rebecca Cleafishes of the world, all think they're better than anybody else because they were currently or were once a leader or whatever. I mean, I just look back to Tommy Thompson, and Tommy Thompson is an enigma because the man was the governor of the state of Wisconsin, but he was also he was also so personal. He's like one of a kind. And I'd like to find another Tommy Thompson, someone who can connect with people, or a Ronald Reagan who connect with people. And quite frankly, I hate to use this example, but I know I'm going to get shit on for it, pardon my language. But even like a Bill Clinton when he was president. I'm not talking about what we know about him now, but he was very good at connecting with people. Barack Obama gave an amazing speech. He was this incredibly skilled orator when he was reading from the teleprompter. But he couldn't connect with somebody one-on-one to save his life. And because he felt he was above everybody. And we get that. And that's where I kind of struggle, and it's nice to see he's coming down from the hill a little bit. When Ron DeSantis came into Wisconsin to campaign for Tim Michels back in October, it was up in Green Bay. He had security all around him, and you weren't allowed to be anywhere near the stage. You couldn't get near him to talk to him, to engage in what, because he was a celebrity and everything else. And then a few days later, I went to this event at the Waukesha County Republican headquarters, and Glenn Youngkin was there, the governor of Virginia, and he came off of the stage and went and interacted with people. We talked. I got my picture taken with him. All that stuff, and a lot of people called Glenn Youngkin, oh, he's just a rhino. He's really not, but and he pulled off the unexpected in the state of Virginia, so that was huge. But he's very personable, and we need more people to be personable on that. Scott Walker initially had that, but he lost it over time. He became too big for his britches. Rebecca Cleafish had that at one time. She became too big for her britches. Tim Michels, whether you like him as a candidate or not, whatever. Here's this guy who's a multi-millionaire, owns these businesses, employs 8,000 people, and you can have a conversation just like I'm having with you because he doesn't think he's better than anyone else. He's not arrogant. I know other people with means as well who are just down-to-earth, everyday people, and we need to come back to, because in the end, we all die just as poor. And, Christopher Lawrence is loving my home. You like my backdrop? Yeah. So I thought I'd stop using the moving backdrops. I was playing with backdrops, and somebody told me that the moving backdrops were making them sick. See, I could do this, and voila! Oh my God, I got a moving backdrop. And then let's see what other ones I can have. Let's have some fun here. I know my show is digressing, but that's all right. It's nice. Or here I am on the beach. Woo! Look at the beach. Son of a beach. I'm gonna have to put on my thong. So, well, all right. Let's get. Oh, here's my tunnel. Whoa! I'm falling. Okay. It's been a long day, and I'm going to sign off because it is time to end the show. Now I'm going to find my backdrop. See, I've got too much going on. You guys distracted me. Thank you very much, Christopher Lawrence, for that. There we go. Now I got my backdrop. There we go. I'm back. This is the one I'm going to use. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining. This is an impromptu, unscripted Paris Procopis show. I will still be doing Paris Procopis show on the go as well. So Remember, I'm Paris Procopis and you're not. And to all you haters out there, this is Paris Procopis, still not shutting up. All right. Everybody have an awesome night, an awesome week. A lot of work to do out there. Get Dan Kelly over that finish line so we can at least get to a 3.5 quart. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.